Welcome back and participate in our conversation on Twitter. The hashtag is the Modise Network. And my guests are Vert Senior Economist Lumkile Mondi and Outer Chairperson CEO Wayne Duvenage, who's with us on the program. We are talking about the Commission of Inquiry headed by the Deputy Chief Justice Raymond Zondo. It's starting its work tomorrow, and people expect a lot from this commission. I'm not sure. It's going to take some time, 18 months to 2 years, to finish its work. What can we expect from this commission, given the fact that yourself, Wayne, you've lodged so many charges against so many people, and I wonder if those have been investigated and whether your complaints are going to fall away now or are going to be taken care of by the commission?
Well, they won't fall away. Those complaints and charges have been laid with the police. We know that they are working on them. The hawks behind the scenes, special investigations are taking place. It's taking longer than we had hoped, but we will also be filing a lot of that information in our updated document to the Commission. So, and there are a lot of charges, you know, ministers, DGs, CEOs and executives within state-owned institutions. A lot of wealthy people do not deserve to be walking free as far as we're concerned. And if the rule of law takes its place, and if this commission is able to piece all of this together in a very compelling way, then, you know, I think you're going to see a lot of people in a lot of trouble.
Well, just to talk me through some of the complaints that you lodged with the police that you think should be attended pretty soon. Well, otherwise, you know, I detect a sense of skepticism out there in the public, people saying, well, you know, we can have this commission, that's okay, but Wayne and others have complained before, went to nothing happened, nothing much is going to come out of this anyway.
You see, you cannot have that approach in life, because if you don't do anything, then nothing does happen. But what happens is that who's in charge today is not necessarily in charge tomorrow. Now we've seen Cyril Ramaphosa is in power. There's an election coming up. There is a sense of moral courage that is getting stronger and stronger. We have a new NPA boss coming. We have somebody new heading up the Hawks. And so things are starting to take place. They should be happening a lot faster, we know. But we cannot adopt this approach that nothing's going to happen. Things will happen. And the rule of law has to start taking its course in this country. So Benzizwane was a big case that we laid, not only for what he did in Estina, but for his interference in the whole the Optimum Mines sale and so on. Richard Seleke, I mean, the amount of interference that has taken place there in the Gupta leaks. You'll see the businessmen, so-called, doing deals, feeding information through to Machela Koko. You have Salim Essa, you have the CFO of Transnet and then at Eskom. The
that this commission will empower even some of us to really press on, because there are some players which couldn't follow through. I'm hoping that some of the players that do get exposed and they get charged eventually, that then they start speaking and saying
when you say
the
players, what do you mean?
Individuals. Political? For example, Anoj, a person like Anoj. Then Anoj Singh starts telling us that actually the reason why he wanted to, he wrote a letter to McKinsey that they don't have to pay the 1 billion rand back was because of an instruction from who? You know, then a new name appears. So all those things, as they come out, they also enable us outside the process to press more charges around that. And hopefully they start talking that, you know, I did these things because Lumkile Mondi told me to do so. Then Lumkile Mondi becomes a player from nowhere. And then it goes on and goes on. And then Lumkile comes and said, by the way, I was told by Minister so and so. So this...
You anticipate that that's likely to happen?
I hope, what we've seen in other commissions, and as well as when there's a wave. I mean, the way that Pravin Gordhan are holding up and following on this process.
No, let's get that right. You say the way the president, and then you say Pravin. I mean,
and Pravin, the two of them,
okay.
the two of them, the two of them. The way they're approaching this is brilliant. You take your time, you ensure that you follow the rule of the law, and you let the process take its course. We've seen how ESCOM slowly stabilizing. We're seeing now Transnet is now its turn to do the same. So, team, these processes, we need to give them time, we need to respect them, but more importantly, we must not sit and watch. We must get engaged. We must never, our country should never experience this. Any letting off and saying let the process take its course, we're going to find ourselves again in 5 years' time in a new regime, someone else does the same. So this...
Well, let me ask you this question yourself, Lumkile, because when you came out with the report, and you've been speaking out as you've been over the past few years, people would label you a white stooge or a stooge for white capital and a reactionary force against the radical economic transformation. What do you say to those criticisms then?
Well, Tim, a number of us have lost family, have lost friends in the struggle against apartheid. The struggle against apartheid was a struggle to ensure that our people get humanized. We now have a democratic regime. We've got a promise of our 1996 constitution. And it's a promise that those friends of mine who were killed under apartheid, today I have to show them, wherever they are, that what they fought for, we've achieved and we shall protect it. So my role and many others is to ensure that that ideal of many continues to be carried through. So those who see me and others as sellouts, they are opportunistic, because what guides me every day are the values of our constitution and the fact that those who are in power today have failed us by following through the values of our constitution. Whether we're talking about equality clause, where we speak specifically around how we ensure that those that don't have access, that constitutionally we take back and ensure that those people are redressed. And we've done nothing about that. So I'm saying here is a historic living document.
So to your mind then, state capture is a bigger threat to the constitutionality of our state and the promises in the constitution?
As we say very clearly in the Schedule State, that the reason why academics led by Ivor Chipkin and Mark Swelling came together, we really saw that, I mean, even the former party project alludes to it, that, you know, constitutionally our constitution is under threat. So we saw very clearly that the behavior and the way the machinery under President Zuma was way outside. That's why we're arguing in the book that's coming on Tuesday that, you know, this is a shadow state, and the shadow state behave unconstitutionally because it weakens all institutions, whether it's economic institutions, the Transnet, the ESCOM, and the political institution, whether it's the NPA, it's the cabinet itself.
And Wayne, I want to bring you in on that part. See, are there specific institutions that over time, in recent times, you are very concerned about, that they may have been weakened to the extent that they are inefficient, and that in itself poses a threat? And tell me how you feel, whether you reckon that they will be sorted.
The Public Protector's Office is weaker than what it used to be. The NPA was weakened completely over the last number of years. If they had have done their job properly, I think a lot of the work would have already been done for the state, for the Commission. The Hawks themselves. So these are the three institutions that we need. They've got powers to subpoena, they've got powers to arrest and conduct deep investigations and get the facts, and then allow the rule of law to take place. So they were part of this whole state capture, as Lumkile says. You've got to slow down the prosecution processes. You've got to get people inside organizations to look the other way. You've got to get auditors not to expose the stuff while you plunder. And they did a very good job of that. Over a 5-year period, 5, 6, 7 years, they stole a lot lot of money.
But what is the extent of the damage then, financially?
You've got to measure it. I don't know how you can, how long's a piece of string.
Who has that information?
No, so Tim,
what is the sense
so Tim, as I said earlier when I started, so the Minister Gordon talked about $1 billion. We think it's very little. the big measure for me is to look at what has been happening to government debt. So you look, as I said earlier, from 28% to about 53% today.
Yeah.
This is billions and billions of rands, and we don't have anything to show where that money went.
Yeah.
So to an extent that we've got our children dying pediatric toilets, we've got mud schools, we've got a failing health system. You have to ask yourself, where did that money go?
So it's not just the
beyond.
money, for that matter, that will still have to be paid, but it's also the outcomes that were not achieved.
Very much. No, very much. The dehumanizing of our own people, who in fact, in a democracy, they should be the one that are seeing the fruits of that. Of those
but do you expect any prosecutions anyway during this life of the commission?
Yeah, because the commission's going to take 18 months to 2 years.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of work, as I said earlier on, being done behind the scene. Well, by the police, by the NPA, the Special Investigations Unit. So we do believe so. In fact, the extent of the cases that we've laid were not just 2 pages or 3 pages of charges. These were files with lots of evidence. And if you took that, if the NPA just took that in the Hawks, they could go and arrest people tomorrow. The evidence is very high there. What we're also looking forward to, Tim, is people like Lynn Brown. There are a number of people who we can see that there seems to be something wrong, but there's not enough evidence. That will hopefully come out in this commission as well. So one thing I'd also like to reflect on, we've done some research lately, and that is people are saying, we've got a lot of work to do in education, we've got a lot of work to do in the health system and that, but we're not going to start and get anywhere until we deal with corruption.
Yes.
And this commission is going to open that door a lot wider.
Sure. And very brief response from you. Any lessons learned, and how should we view the future given the traumatic experience we've just had?
We have a dream that's embedded in our constitution, and that dream requires not only us out and a few in the media, Amapungan, etc. It requires all of you watching to stand up and demand from our public institution to abide by the constitution and redress using our constitution.
And the resources of the public as well, using the resources accordingly.
And get behind civil society. Make sure that you become active citizens. Don't say no. Don't accept mediocrity. Don't look away. Be part of the solution, because we've got a lot of work to do to get this country out of the hole it's in.
Wayne Duvenesh, thank you very much. Lumkile Mondi, thank you very much.
Thank you
so much.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
And that's all we have for you this evening, and thank you for having been part of our discussions here on the Modise Network. And be sure to tune in next week, Saturday at 6 p.m. And we're talking about the Zondo Commission. It starts its work tomorrow, Monday. From us, good night to you.